Welcome back to Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net. This is Carol Parisi. Our founder, Jack Rizzer, and myself have Chris Jenner with us, and we're talking about school boards. And you were saying something before the break, Chris, on how folks that are not really wanting the transparency try and give a perception that accountability is not for the kids and not for the teachers. Can we talk a little bit about that? And because as a mom, I want my kid to have a good education. I want my teachers to be paid well. When you're paid well, you think you're going to have a good performance from someone. What are your thoughts on these things, being in the trenches there?
I guess there's a few things. You remind me of the $500 hamburger. I mean, if you pay $500 for a hamburger, it's going to taste really good, right? Because you paid more money for it. Paying more for something doesn't necessarily ensure quality.
True. But
well, one of the big things there, for instance, class size. Now, reducing the class size from 30 to 20 is going to take, you're going to hire a lot more teachers, and that's why the union pushes it, because it increases the number of people in the union.
So what I'm hearing, it's really not about those 20 kids getting a better education. It's about increasing the union army for union dues. It's not about the kids.
It doesn't do much for the kids, if anything. Arguably, it's better to have a mixed class of smart and dumb kids, which would get less quick kids. The questions get better, and there's arguments to be made for large classes. I got to say this: my son Tom, that runs my corporation, he was a teacher of engineering at Purdue. He's a highly educated man today. In grammar school, in the 4th grade, Mrs. Clary had 55 children, which was common in a 1,000-children school in Park Ridge, very nice town. And there was nobody practically, well, during class time, there was nobody in the office. And 55 kids in a class, not all nuns, although they did have some nuns in those days.
Okay.
Catholic school.
Okay.
55 kids in a class. Mrs. Clary took 5 kids in 4th grade and taught them 5th grade and skipped them into 6th, where they did well. Now, yeah, I could tell you more about how that happened, but imagine the great economies that came out of it. Tom certainly went on to a great education and in fine universities, and there's not a better manager of a corporation in the state of Illinois. There's a lot of good came out of it. Park Ridge would not tolerate children in a bad school. Parents would not send them there if that Catholic school wasn't the best one in the city. 55 kids in a class.
And you were talking about the desire, everybody wants a quality education.
Yes.
And let's do a parallel. When you go shopping for groceries or clothes, sure, you want quality, but don't you care about how much you're spending as well?
Absolutely.
Well, that part doesn't seem to translate into the parallel universe of government schools.
It translates into there. Immediately, the union says, if it costs more, it must be better.
Well, if it costs more, they get more.
That is the line you get. You're a child hater, which I've personally been called child hater at meetings and in the press. It must be a child hater. He doesn't want to spend money on children.
And that's the theory behind the Prevailing Wage Act that school boards and all public bodies are forced to abide by. This is another thing where you're basically, I guess I'm going to get started on this a little bit. The Prevailing Wage Act is written, it requires every public body to annually survey and establish the local prevailing wage for various trades, such as, painter, carpenter, bricklayer, and so on.
I know what it is about on people that work on roofs, and that's a subject all of its own.
You guys have discussed the roof thing before.
It is.
Well, no, we've never discussed this angle of it.
Okay.
But it does add, 20, 30, 40% to the cost of a project, which is money, for a roof that you're going to spend $1 million on. Think about it. That's $300,000 that could otherwise. go to the
Actually,
classroom.
I've studied this particular thing. The reason is roofs are on your home, they're on every business, they're on schools, and they have not a damn thing to do with what goes on in the classroom.
Right.
So you get just a pure look at the management ability of the people who are running the school district when you look at what does it cost to fix a leaking roof. Well, I fixed my home just a couple of years ago. I got a 50-year roof at $3 a square foot, good for 50 years. Okay, and they had to take off boards in the old roof, and they had to put in new insulation. They did all that stuff, and I was paying about the right price. A school district wouldn't pay $3. Typically, I find they pay $16. Now, there's a lot more roof there, and the price should drop on the scale of it, and they're usually flat, and the price should drop on it. I found Barrington where I live, and I talked to the superintendent about it. They wound up claiming that those roofs would cost $22 a square foot to fix them. Now, what a bloomin' idiot to think that that's it. Sorry to call the soup, he's gone now anyway, but what a blithering know-nothing to think that a roof can cost $20 a square foot.
Chris, you have something implemented on your board, and that would help prevent something like this happening. Tell our listeners about that with the contracts.
Well, a couple of the other policies that we have, one of the first ones that we put in we call no pay for play. It wouldn't necessarily prevent what you're discussing, but basically we have a policy that says if any vendor makes a significant donation to a referendum campaign or a board member's campaign, we will not do business with that vendor. We have another policy that we call...
Can I stop you right there? I got an instance in the local district here, and I've got a letter from an architect that got his fingers all over and spent, I don't know, something like $60,000 on an election. And the letter sent to the superintendent was that they deserved to be the architect for a new school because he had helped pass the referendum. And I have the letter, for God's sake. Said they're shameless.
Oh yeah, and I remember that very well. He contributed $15,000 to a building fund referendum. The referendum passed, and the next day he got a contract to design 4 schools.
And was that in the newspaper? How many of the hardworking taxpayers knew that?
Very few. Hardly. The papers do not do a good job. Occasionally, particularly the Daily Herald has run articles on various facets of it. And lately, the Tribune, rarely, but once in a while, will run an article. But this is the biggest mine of mismanagement in the whole state. Single-handedly, the unions have busted the whole state of Illinois. We are so far in debt, we are the worst of the 50 states. And it's been accomplished largely under the influence of the school unions.
Well, they were in bed with Madigan and his friends. Michael, I know you're chomping.
Yeah, just taking a look at what happened with District 300, I would put big money on it that this whole thing was an orchestrated event with District 300.
You're talking about the strike.
The school board. It was a one-day strike. One-day strike. Yep. And it was all orchestrated, because here's what happens. The strike, the teachers, the union looks like they've got a lot of power. They only strike one day, and they got what they wanted. The school board looks like, oh, we averted a disaster. We came to the rescue. And truly, all the school board said is give us something to hang our hat on. One-day strike, we give you what you want. Everybody goes away happy.
What's that 300 school board look like? Is that a fiscally responsible, transparent school board, or no?
I have not been following them very closely in the last couple of years, so I really don't feel qualified to speak on it.
Well, I can tell you this, and this is something else that really chews. I won't go there.
Okay, Michael.
Anyway.
Michael's going to have his weekly rant.
and we're coming near the end of this session,
Yes.
but I have something that reads right on this District 300.
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
My involvement with it.
I'll get back later. Go ahead.
Well, it has to do with what the amount of the raises really were. The superintendent of this District 300 And the finely dressed lady that is in charge of the finances claimed that the raises they gave in the last union contract were 4%. I proved to them that they were over 10% a year, and these dunces maintained constantly in print and verbally they were 4%.